Hey guys, welcome back to Your Soul Sexy. I'm so excited today because I have my badass girlfriend, Whitney English, here with me today, who's a registered dietitian and just an overall amazing human being.
Aw, thank you so much. Welcome to Whit's Kitchen.
Yeah, thank you for letting us invade your home.
Absolutely.
You guys will notice a lot on my channel that I'm all about babes, supporting babes, because I think women empowering women is one of the most beautiful things, and I'm so lucky to be surrounded by such incredible women in my life. And I'm so pumped to have Whitney here today because we're going to dive into some really controversial things when it comes to nutrition, but this gal is a fellow Geek Squad member and loves researching, so we're gonna get down to the dirty details about what we really should and should not be eating.
Let's do it. We're holding nothing back.
Well, I want to say at first, I love that our stories are so similar because my first job in LA was actually at E-Entertainment. I was not doing anything glamorous. I was working in human resources and business affairs. But
that's so funny.
Yeah, this hot babe was an E-reporter, right? And you were doing the news?
Yeah, so well, I did a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
I worked for a news reporting division, and I would cover like Hollywood events and breaking news stories. I'd be down at like the courts at Lindsay Lohan's hearings and just all over the place.
Well, I can't even imagine like being sucked into that world as your first job, and like Hollywood is such a body obsessed place.
Oh, yeah.
So how did that affect you and get you to becoming a dietitian?
Sure. So, I mean, I was always personally interested in nutrition and fitness. My dad was an athlete. My grandpa owned sports clubs. So it was always around me growing up. I played a lot of sports. So actually, when I started working at E and got to Los Angeles, while I was supposed to be focusing on celebrity gossip, I always wanted to be asking the celebrities about what they were eating and how they were working out. And what I saw along the way was there was just a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of incorrect and possibly harmful information. And it scared me and it upset me because, like you said, I'm a nutrition nerd. I like to really dive into the science, and what I was seeing was that the stuff was wrong and it could hurt people. So that was pretty much why I decided to go back to school. I started writing about nutrition on my blog, and then I kind of realized I should really become an expert if I'm going to be talking about this. And that's when I decided to go back to school. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I think that it's so true. There's just so much information out there, and with, I feel like everyone's constantly trying to educate themselves, which I think that they should, but the second that you go to Google and look, is anything good or bad, there's a flood of articles that saying things are good, and we don't know where that information is actually coming from. I mean, think about all the fad diets that have happened. Atkins being one of them.
Yeah.
And people still practice Atkins, but most people that are practicing Atkins don't actually know the healthy way to do it.
Right.
And they're eating processed meats like salami and cheese, and that's all they're doing, and they may be losing weight, but they don't realize what they're doing to themselves internally.
Absolutely.
And what they're gonna.
And that's something I stress a lot too, is that just because something is going to make you physically appear healthy doesn't mean that it's internally healthy, doesn't mean that it's healthy for you long term, that it's going to prevent chronic disease. And that's one of my main focuses, is that we're not just trying to look and feel better. We want to make sure that we have a long, healthy lifespan.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that we should all probably be avoiding, and it's also really controversial, is meat. So let's talk about meat. Is it really bad for us? What's the big deal?
So a couple of years ago, the World Health Organization actually released a report linking meat, and specifically processed meat, to cancer, and specifically colorectal, prostate, and pancreatic cancer. And they classified red meat as group 2A, which means possibly carcinogenic to humans. So they have a pretty good deal of evidence showing that it probably causes cancer. Now, processed meat they classified as a group 1. Group 1 contains cigarette smoke, asbestos, things we definitely know cause cancer. It is in that group.
And I know now, since that's happened, a lot of companies are trying to make bacon and sausage and stuff that's healthy.
Sure.
Is it?
Sure. So one of the things that they believe is the reason that processed meats are so closely linked to cancer is because of what's used to preserve them and to bring out flavor. And these are nitrites. And so those in the body turn into toxic substances like polycyclic, it's hard to say, aromatic hydrocarbons and heterocyclic amines. And these are formed during high heat cooking. And they're formed not only from processed meats, but also just from regular meat, but more so from the processed meat. So by removing the nitrates, you're going to get less production of these nitroso compounds. And those are linked to cancer.
Okay.
So it's a better option to get organic, nitrite-free, grass-fed, all that good stuff, but it doesn't really solve the problem. And it's not just these compounds that are formed during cooking. Meat also contains carnitine, which you may have heard of in the fitness world. Some people take carnitine supplements. So we actually naturally produce carnitine, and what it does is it helps transport fatty acids into your mitochondria to help with energy production. So the thinking is, oh, we'll take a supplement, I'm going to have more production of energy. That's not really how it works. And what we've also learned is that the carnitine found in meat is also fermented by our gut bacteria into a compound known as trimethylamine, which then is turned into in your liver into trimethylamine oxide, which you might have heard of called TMAO. And that's associated with cardiovascular disease.
So
very strongly.
Bad news.
So
bad news all around.
So that's what I kind of tell people when they're like, oh, but I'm eating the grass-fed. Well, that's probably good. That's probably better because grass-fed meat tends to be higher in omega-3 fatty acids, which obviously are good for brain health, heart health, reducing inflammation. But overall, we've got all this other stuff going on that isn't solved by simply not having processed meat.
Well, and I feel like so many of us still live, I mean, listen, I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska, where we basically just ate like beef and potatoes and corn, and veggies were a side dish. And, you know, I spent like 20 odd years of my life eating that way and like building my meal around meat.
Sure.
And then trying to figure like half the plate would be meat sometimes. And I feel like most people still live that way.
Sure.
So I know that your philosophy is really just about not necessarily eliminating all meats, but living more of a plant-rich life. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so I advocate for what I call a predominantly plant-based diet. And that means as many plants as possible, as often as possible, and then still giving yourself permission to be a normal human being. Yeah. You have a childhood connection to eating meat. And I'm sure when you go home, people are still eating meat. And when you travel on a trip to Spain and somebody wants you to try the local sausage, these are times in your life when I don't think that you should have to deprive yourself. But however, the research does support that eating this stuff on a daily basis is associated with higher rates of chronic disease and mortality. So I advocate, like I just said, eating as much as possible. So reframing your plate. So you said, you know, you come from a place where am I going to put the meat, the animal protein? Sometimes it's half the plate. I encourage people to look at the plate and you want to kind of divide it actually in 3 sections. So half of your plate you want to fill with fruits and vegetables, mainly vegetables. And then the other half of the plate I divide between whole grains and complex starches, and then 1/4 of your plate to the protein. And you want to aim for plant-based proteins when possible, more of the nuts, seeds, beans, but you can balance that out with a little bit of animal products as well. And for everyone, it's different. It's about finding what works for you and what's sustainable in your life.
I've had so many amazing stories and heard stuff from people that have been dealing with diseases or, you know, terrible chronic inflammation that have switched to mostly plant-based diet and seen incredible results. Is that typically like what you're seeing, and why do you think that's happening? Is it because they're removing the meat, or just that all of the other goodies that are part of that? Well,
so this is what we see when we look at research. The problem is there isn't a lot of good, what we call randomized controlled trials. That means an intervention study where we can prove that this diet caused this. What we have is a lot of epidemiological evidence. So looking at populations and looking for trends in what they eat. And across the board, we see that people who eat more plant-rich diets, vegan, vegetarian, or just less meat, have lower rates of chronic disease, specifically cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, it just goes on and on and on. And like I said though, that's correlation, not causation. So anecdotally, you do see people feeling better, like reversing chronic disease. There's many anecdotal stories of people who have reversed heart disease, reversed diabetes, had improvements in cancer, not necessarily by the diet themselves, because we don't have, again, those specific studies to show it.
A culmination of like all your lifestyle choices.
Exactly. And it's just what the trends are pointing towards. Yeah.
But it just sounds so difficult. Like, you know, I've gradually, and this, what Whitney believes in is what I believe in too. My plan is just really about building like even like 50 to 75% of your plate plant-based. But, you know, again, I've had 27, 28 years of eating that way. And I like vegetables. That's a problem for other people that literally never eat vegetables. They don't even know how. But it's still difficult for me to try and figure out how to build a meal that's mostly plant-based. That's not just like I'm eating a salad and I feel like a rabbit.
Right.
So, like,
right. I get that. Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of your biggest tips when it comes to making that transition? And maybe not jumping right in so it's so extreme.
So I'll tell you, I mean, I come from a fitness background. I came from eating 6 egg whites a day. Yeah. 6 egg whites every day. Were you doing
like the whole like 5-6 meals a day too, every 2 and 3 hours?
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's just bogus.
Yeah, just like all of the stuff that you
cut it out. There's no science behind that.
No.
And it's just so much more work.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. And so I would have 6 egg whites a day every morning for probably a good like 10 years maybe. Then I started incorporating egg yolks when we learned that those were okay. Nutrition science is always evolving. I would have chicken like twice a day. So for me, when I really learned about this, and this was during my program at USC and a specific course that I took in Italy on genes and longevity, the minute I learned that, I kind of cut out chicken. So that was my first big transition. I never really ate a lot of red meat. I just didn't love it, but I'll have a bite of my husband's burger when he gets one. And then for a while, I was still eating eggs and yogurt and cheese. And I just slowly started moving to less and less. Yeah. And like I said, I still eat fish probably 2 to 3 times a week. I'll still eat some animal products like milk and cheese when I go out to eat. But it's really about making food at home. I think where you have the majority of your meals is where you want to focus. Yeah. And some of my best tips for building your plate are to think about it in kind of like those sections that we talked about. So every time I have a meal, I usually want to have some sort of bean or legume. I have a whole grain and then vegetables. And a Buddha bowl is a really good example. People are really into those lately. Yeah. That's really got a perfect balance of your macronutrients. So you get some quinoa in there, some beans, some roasted veggies. Is that what we're going to build today? We could. We can build a Buddha bowl. I actually have some quinoa prepped
I don't think a lot of people from the Midwest even know what a Buddha bowl is.
What is a Buddha bowl?
So it's like a trendy thing in big cities, but I think we should build one.
Okay, we can do that for sure. Okay. But what I was going to say is, you shouldn't be as intimidated as people tend to be about worrying so much about what you're going to have. As long as you hit your main groups, as long as you've got a protein, a healthy fat, a whole grain, and some vegetables, that's all you really need. And you can throw it together like anything else. Yeah. It's just about kind of changing the way you're thinking. Yeah. You can make the same meals that you made with chicken without chicken.
And I know a lot of people are probably like freaking out about the whole grain thing, but don't worry, we'll get to that.
We'll get into the grains next.
Because most people are just so focused on protein and veggies, especially people that are following like the very strict fitness diet. Yeah. It's like, or protein, rice, and veggies, and God, that's so boring.
Rice. So terrible. Oh my gosh. It's a sad, flavorless diet that I used to eat.
It is, and it's torture, and then you give up. So it's like, how can we find more balance? So
sure.
I love your plan. I love what you're doing. So I think that we should get in and have a little fun, make a little Buddha bowl.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've got all of our goodies out here to make our first Buddha bowl. My first Buddha bowl. I've never had one before.
Buddha bowl virgin.
Yes. Okay. I'm excited. So what do we got going on here?
Okay, so
is this a typical Buddha bowl?
It kind of is. Yeah. So a Buddha bowl basically means you usually got some sort of whole grain, you've got some vegetables, maybe some bean or legume in there. Okay. But you can really put anything you want in it. It basically means throwing a bunch of stuff in a bowl. Yeah. Okay. There's no technical term.
So let's throw it in a bowl. So what do you start with? That?
Every week I prep quinoa, so this is just ready. Like all these things I just grabbed out of the fridge. So I start with a base of like some sort of whole grain like quinoa.
Okay.
So we'll add those to our bowls.
Perfect.
And then we've got some chickpeas right here. Again, you could use any kind of bean that you have. Some people will add like tofu. And you can saute these up or you can roast them or you can just throw them in raw too. Great time-saving and money-saving tip for beans is just buying canned beans. And people are afraid of cans a lot, but you really shouldn't be. The only problem with cans is back in the day, a lot of people used BPA lining, which is an endocrine disruptor. So as long as you're buying cans that say BPA free, and then possibly organic too, if that's what you're into. I am.
Yeah,
then
you should be.
Yeah, then beans are a great choice. And you just want to make sure you rinse them thoroughly too. That'll help decrease any digestive discomfort you might have. Okay. So we've got our protein right here. So this is basically a really great source of protein between the grains and the beans.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm looking at this all right now, and my mind is like, okay, so myself and other people are probably like, oh, where's my protein source?
So this is like what we talked about with the plate, you know? We've got half your plate is going to be all these veggies, and like right here you see we've got a fourth with our whole grain and a fourth with the beans. Every single plant has protein in it. Yeah, a banana has almost 2 grams of protein. Yeah. A cooked cup of broccoli has almost 4 grams of protein. Yeah. And a can of beans, a whole cup of lentils, for instance, has 18 grams of protein.
I think people just immediately think they see carbs.
Yeah, they see carbs.
They freak out.
And the interesting thing is that foods in their whole form, they actually aren't just one thing. So beans, yeah, they've got some carbs. Grains, they have carbs, but they're also protein. Yeah. They also have a little bit of fat. Yeah. So really eating things in their whole foods form is the best way to make sure you're getting all of your nutrients. And this right here creates a perfect protein.
Not be afraid of carbs is like the best news ever.
Right? It solves it right there. But it's hard, I get it. You've been like programmed for a long time to look at carbs as evil. So. Yeah.
Anyway, I love it. I'm all about
the more carbs, the better. Your body likes them. They're the preferred source of energy.
Yes. Just as long as you have the right carbs.
Exactly, exactly. I think we're going to talk more about that
we'll
in our
get
next
into that.
video.
Don't worry.
Okay, so now we're going to add our veggies. We've got some roasted sweet potato right here. I like to roast sweet potatoes, beets, sometimes like Brussels sprouts, whatever veggies you like to roast. I roast those when I cook my quinoa, and then it's super easy to throw this together. Cool. We've got some kale right here. You can saute it if you want, or you can put it in raw. You also chop these up very nicely. We've got some red peppers, and something that's great about eating red peppers specifically is they're really high in vitamin C. And I try to get a good source of vitamin C with all of my meals because vitamin C helps your body absorb the iron that is found in plant sources. So iron from plants is a little bit different than the form that it's found in animals, and it's a little bit harder to digest and absorb into the body. So
is that why a lot of times I feel like people that are following a vegan diet and getting used to it, they say, I've heard this before, to like have a piece of fruit with your meal?
Possibly,
maybe?
Yeah. Okay. So like strawberries, for instance, are really high in vitamin C, so I always put strawberries in my oatmeal bowl in the morning.
Me too.
And you're just really unlocking the potential of everything you eat when you do that.
Cool.
So we got these, and
can't forget about the avo.
Don't forget about the avo. We got to get our healthy fat in there, so we're going to top it with our source of healthy fat.
I have a problem with avocados because I can eat like the entire thing at one time.
Oh, I'm with you, girl. Put a little salt on there. And then the crowning glory is this is some cashew sauce. So most people probably don't have this on hand, but you can really put anything that you want on top of here. You don't really need a sauce either. But
do you have this as a recipe on your site?
I don't. I have similar recipes. Okay. Yeah, okay. We have something we can link up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we'll just drizzle the bowl with this. Adds a little bit more healthy fat and tons of flavor. Tahini is a really great topping, which is just roasted and blended sesame seeds. You can find that by the nut aisle.
Perfect.
And ta-da!
This is so easy, you guys. You know what? Plant eating does not have to be that difficult at all.
It came together in like 5 minutes.
Yes. Okay, but now I have to actually try it. See what this is like.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me hear what you think.
All right. Just go straight for the avo and the carbs. Right. That's where my head goes. That is so good. Oh my god.
This really makes sense. You can put that on anything and it'll taste good.
You definitely need to get the recipe for that one up because it's amazing.
Definitely.
So you guys, this is super easy. It doesn't have to be that difficult and it's delicious. So I'm super excited. We're gonna tackle another couple topics that are probably even more controversial in the next couple of videos. But thank you so much for having
Thanks for coming.
me here.
Yeah.
I'll put Whitney's, all of her information in the comment section below so you guys can check her out. Let us know if you have any questions that we can cover for you guys at another time or anything else that you'd like to see. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, which I hope you do, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and we will see you soon. Thanks, girlfriend.
Yeah.